I agree with what's just been said, and I think that's part of why our organization wanted to be part of this tonight, is to really think about the implications of what that means, and then what does a movement need to look like in order to address that. If we are really facing a war on women and children, and particularly disproportionately Black and brown women and children in this state, what does the movement need to look like in order to fully address that? So, as was shown earlier, the entire world was watching us, is what happened this summer, where there were 7,000 people on July 1st and people talking about connecting the dots. I guess we felt like the dots weren't really being connected. And these are the reasons why. I think that as an organizer, though now I work as a healthcare provider, I'm becoming a provider, but my background's in community organizing, watching a movement build so quickly, right? And that's how movements happen, usually. That's how things happen. Being able to see the mobilization kind of muscle build so fast and sustain, right? That's the other part, when you can see people day after day being able to come back and continue. That's really impressive, as you all said. But in the middle of that, while that was going on, and day after day, we saw people at the Capitol. We tried to jump in and actually felt at times very uncomfortable. A lot of our members felt very alienated in the spaces where often people would just come up and try to use Black and brown women's faces to like hold the banner or be in front of the camera or be interviewed, because because there was an underrepresentation both in numbers and in leadership, which is what we saw. That in the middle of those days, there were two actions around Trayvon Martin, and they were back-to-back happening with the other actions. And we were there, and the numbers were small. And it was the same place, it was the same week, and it was all of us making the connections about what is happening to women and children in Texas and in this country day to day. And we were really, really outraged at what we saw. It was below our expectations by far when we were out there. And that's one of the examples. The other is, as we're framing the issues around reproductive justice, and I wasn't trying to say that I was bringing a brand new approach, I'm just saying, if we know that that's the vision of what reproductive justice encompasses, then why are we so outraged around what's happening around abortion, but in the same place, we're living in a place where Latina women are 4 times less likely to receive care at all when pregnant, 4 times less likely than white women. There's no outrage to the same scale. The mobilization muscle is not there. And even more egregious, that Black women, Black babies are 2.5 times more likely to die. Infant mortality in Texas is crazy. I don't know if you know this. The US, we're at a horrible rate compared to all the rest of the developing world. In Texas, we're even worse. The outrage, the mobilization muscle, the capacity to build movement and connect the dots, I don't see it there. So those are the questions that we want to ask in terms of reproductive justice. If we think about the history, or our herstory of how we got here and reproduction in this country, and how this country is built on the backs of the reproductive control of Black, Indigenous women, literally, right? If we know that that's how we have the wealth that we have is on those backs, literally, then how can we not link, the forced sterilization that's still happening today in this country, right? And why it makes sense that for many of us, yes, we want to fight for the right to not have a baby, but actually, oftentimes it's our right to be able to keep our tubes from getting tied out from under us, that we have to fight for just as hard day to day, today and every day. So those are the dots, not to make any less of the potential of this moment, but unless we can figure out how to connect the dots in this moment and really build a movement that's representational of our population, of who we are and our experiences and our history of how we've lived reproduction, then we're not gonna win this war against women.